So we watched it again, this time in 3D, and I felt that this would be a good opportunity to talk about two things, the 3D experience and the experience of watching the film a second time.
Yeah.
And I gotta say that my feelings were nowhere near as high and excited as it was the first time. Obviously, that's natural with watching a film a second time, but man, like the diminishing results from the first one to the second one was a lot more startling than I expected. I wonder if it's at all informed by external forces, like other people not appreciating it as much, critics not appreciating it as much. I don't think it is, because I usually am pretty good about combating that, but it did seem like, okay, so I had some feelings that weren't super optimistic and positive after watching it, and I kind of put that to the side because there was a lot of elation from the experience of it, right?
Right.
But those things kind of creep in, you're like, well, what about that? What about that? What about that? It's almost like that thing you ignore about a girl that you're interested in for the first year, and then you're like, oh, yeah, that stuff's not going away, is it? When I was looking at comments, or not comments, but like other people's thoughts on it, I was like, oh yeah, that stuff is kind of bad. Before we go deeper into this, because I want to like shift into the positive things that I felt, even having watched it a second time.
Yeah.
I want to say that the 3D on this was really good.
Yeah, it really was.
I don't want to forget about that. Real D3D has invited us to multiple screenings, and what I've come away with each time is I don't have any negative feeling about the 3D. The only negative feeling I potentially have, and this is like something I get over within a few minutes, is the having to wear the glasses at all. Like that's it. But outside of that, I've actually really come around to it. We brought Aragorn to watch a 3D movie with us, or
Yeah,
you
Pacific
brought
Rim,
him.
yeah.
You went and watched it with him, and he normally hates 3D, and he really enjoyed it. He had a great time. I mean, you guys can watch that review. So all I'm saying is if you have the opportunity to watch this in 3D, if that's the only showing available, or if you're just, even somewhat interested in it, I would say go for it, because it actually enhances the experience. It's like a window into it, and it just gives it more depth. It's not poking you in the face anymore. It's more about making it feel more immersive.
Yeah.
I was gonna say three-dimensional, but that was kind of redundant, isn't it? Without being ambiguous any further, let's go into this. This is gonna be spoiler through and through. So this is under the assumption that you've watched the film already. Crimes of Grindelwald, or you say it, the other version.
Crimes of Grindelwald?
Yeah. Directed by David Yates, who's directing all 5 of these movies. So this is one book.
So Fantastic Beasts itself was this like teeny tiny little book that was basically the textbook that they use at Hogwarts.
There is a book, though.
Yes, it's called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Well, I was at Costco the other day. They actually had a book. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a textbook. I've read it.
Oh, you read it. It's just a textbook.
When it came out. I mean, I don't know if they've upgraded it or did something different, but when that book first came out, it was on the back of the Harry Potter books, and it was just like this fun little thing, because from reading the books and watching the movies that the textbook that they use for one of their Fantastic Beasts classes is the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, or Taking Care of Magical Beasts, I forget. They've just managed to expand on the whole wizarding world.
Right, 5 movies.
5 movies based off of one not very great little book.
Yeah, so that's what's concerning me. The arrangement of this whole thing is worse than The Hobbit. The Hobbit was one book spread into 3 movies. This is one book spread into 5 movies. Now, that being said...
It has nothing to do with the book at this point.
I don't know. Okay, then fine. I retract that. But it still feels like something that's being spread out. And that's what I gathered the second time I watched it. I was like, wow, it's this thing that's kind of like pushing this thing down the road just because they want to make more movies out of it. And I'm like, it doesn't feel like one of those things where, when I watched Lord of the Rings, I never got the sense of these things are being pushed down the road. It felt like there was just a lot of story there to tell.
Right, because there was.
Game of Thrones, I feel the same way for the most part, where there's just a lot of story there. Nothing's being kicked down the road. There's just a lot to talk about because that's how it was set up. Here, that's not the case. It's like, now you're kind of stretching it. And I'm actually concerned. I'm like, how are you gonna do this for 5 movies? I'm really hoping that with each installment, it feels like just more body, more story, as opposed to it being stretched.
Well, that was my feeling. After leaving the movie the first time, I was actually really excited. Not just because of, the amazing effects, the creatures, getting to see beloved characters like Dumbledore, and obviously like everyone did a really great job performance-wise, but I was actually really excited because it's setting up a lot of stuff that I'm hoping that they're going to go into more detail in the future. And I think that a lot of people were actually annoyed by that fact because it felt like it was just introducing a bunch of new characters, but like, where is this going and what's going on?
I think that there's this kind of expectation from J.K. Rowling and the filmmakers that people know. Surely they know that there are multiple installments coming. Most people know that, right? And I don't think that most people actually do to the degree that they're doing it. I've told some people in just conversation, like, there's gonna be 5 movies, and then they're like, 5 movies? A lot of people didn't have any idea. Having watched it a second time, I still feel like Johnny Depp did a great job with his character. One person said, was it Perry? I think Perry Nemiroff was concerned about how she didn't feel the charisma that the movie was saying he had.
Yeah.
In terms of, she's like, I don't understand why everyone's following him. Regardless of whether or not that's communicated through the screen, like, I agreed with her in that it didn't sell me that he was charismatically pulling all these people in like Queenie, right? But the movie says that he's charismatic, and that's why they cut out his tongue.
Yeah.
It says it. So it's like, oh my, okay, I just buy into it. Even though I don't feel it the way the movie wants me to, I buy into it because the movie establishes the rules.
Yeah, but then, you know, like you said, he's able to turn people like Queenie, and then he's able to convince Credence as well, I guess.
Yeah. I watched Greg's review, and one thing he was saying was that it felt like every few minutes they were establishing a new plot.
Yes.
And I didn't get that sense. Because if you were to ask me like about the movie, I could break down to you all the plots through the movie. I just felt like there were certain moments where it was kind of like clunky. Leading up into the final crescendo of the film, which wasn't a strong one. Watching it the first time, I was like, okay, I know where this is going. And the second time, it felt even worse. I'm like, yeah, this is really not a strong ending to this film. Again, though, you might be okay later on once you see all 5 movies.
Yeah.
Leading into that, they were in the mausoleum, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Leading into that scene, it was like suddenly there was a conflict happening. It didn't quite build up to that properly, in my opinion. The bookends of the mausoleum were bad to me. And so when they were leaving into the stadium where Johnny Depp was like talking to everybody, they cut back to, what's his name?
Who?
The round guy.
Jacob Kowalski?
Yes. Jacob Kowalski. I don't even see his name here. He's not on the IMDb for some odd reason. At least right now he's not. Maybe it'll be corrected later on.
No,
there he is. Way down.
Dan Fogler.
Dan Fogler, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is everyone decides that it's time to make that transition into the Coliseum thing, right? And then it cuts to Dan Fogler also entering. But the way it was edited felt like he was in the same room for a second. I was like really confused as to like, I guess the arrangement of where everybody was. I don't even understand how exactly he was able to get into the Coliseum at all, being a muggle. Like, that was just bizarre to me. One thing Perry pointed out that I felt as well watching it was I couldn't tell when they were amongst muggles or wizards as all this stuff was going on sometimes.
You just kind of had to take a leap of faith and be like, well, if they're surrounded by muggles right now, then someone is gonna, obliterate or whatever that spell is, their memories.
Right.
Obliviate.
X-smell the armpits.
Yes, that one.
Let's talk about the beginning. So, Johnny Depp swap places with Abernathy. Grindelwald swap places with Abernathy, right?
Right.
So the guy who's sitting there quiet at the beginning was actually Abernathy in disguise as Grindelwald. Grindelwald was Abernathy kind of watching everything go down. At that point, Grindelwald could just walk out of the prison. He doesn't have to actually hop on the wagon and do what he did. That was all for show. I don't understand exactly why he did it. I think the reason why is because he wanted to control the guy who he saved from dying. Like, he sent someone falling into the water.
Yeah.
And he gave him a wand. You know, he prevented him from dying. You saw the movie, right?
Yeah.
That guy, I think, shows up later on and is part of who hires someone that is working for Grindelwald. I think that's why he saved him and he was manipulating him. But the movie was not clear about that, and that's what's frustrating. That was one of my big issues with the film, is that there was a lack of clarity throughout the film.
I can definitely see that. I just feel like there's so much being set up now that hopefully will pay off later. In my estimation, I'm giving this movie a pass because I am trusting that J.K. Rowling and David Yates and everyone involved in the creation of this series has an idea for how the direction that the movie is going to go and how it's going to end. So I'm placing my trust in them that there's a reason why a lot of this seems very open-ended, or why characters have been introduced or conflicts have been introduced that haven't been resolved.
No.
I will be
Naturally.
disappointed
If it doesn't get resolved.
if by the third one, I'm not starting to see how things are falling into place. Like, that's what I want.
One thing I mentioned in our first review was that near the beginning of the film, and I pointed it out to you, so you saw it this time, was the random POV shots from
Newt Scamander's
perspective. I noticed that I was wrong in that regard. It still felt like out of left field that these POV shots were happening. It still bothered me, but it was poetic in a way because it came up again later on.
Right.
But it was used kind of arbitrarily in the beginning because like everyone's got a POV shot. We all have POV shots. But really it should have just been Newt Scamander's POV shot looking at
Lita Lestrange.
Lita. Because later on in the flashback sequence, it does the same thing again. The POV shots, both from Lita and from Newt Scamander looking at each other. And I'm like, oh, that's why he's doing that. Because what he's trying to say is that these two characters really see each other. But it's confused. The message is confused when he's also got a POV shot on his brother. I'm like, what? I didn't understand what the point of this is. So in a way, it's got its own little poetry going on. I don't think it was perfectly executed, but I didn't catch that the first time. I caught it the second time. I just want to mention that. It did that right. One thing I feel like I should say was, I fell asleep a couple times watching it the second time. I don't know, like I don't think I was that tired. I got kind of bored. And I don't know why. Like the first time I had a lot of coffee in me, and I think I just had my adrenaline was going, I was all caffeinated. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And it felt like it kept moving and I was excited. And then the second time I'm like, oh, this is...
There were certainly moments where there were lulls.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that, yeah.
There's a number of specific positive things I said in the previous review, and I still think that I feel that way. Like one of those things being, I liked how they portrayed Hogwarts. I still like how they portrayed Hogwarts. I still like the performances from, basically all the cast. I like everybody's performances still. Story-wise, there were problems. There was a lot left to be desired, and obviously, for a lot of people, it really hurt their experience with the movie. I'm actually shocked how poor it's doing critically. Like, the other ones seem to fare better, the Harry Potter films. You guys, I really want to know what you think. I'm sure most of you have watched it by now. So if you haven't seen our previous review, which is totally different from this one, it's so much more positive than this one, go check that out if you feel like it. It's a non-spoiler review. This one obviously was spoilers. So I want to hear your thoughts. Be honest, be verbose. Check out... I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out our other reactions, reviews, and short films, and comment below. I am Jaby Koay. This is
ACHARA.
Peace out.